The Wishmaster franchise is one of the attempts into making a contemporary 80s style horror slasher that was unfortunately late to the party. Hollywood had forever changed the perception that audiences had towards the horror genre with the release of Scream in 1996. If you're unaware, Wishmaster is a supernatural slasher filled to the brim with legendary horror cameos that I would still recommend solely for its campiness. Now, it's been 2 years since I covered the first one, and I think it's time to reawaken the gin for the sequel. In this video, I'll be covering the production that led the studio to even consider greenlighting a sequel to a failed franchise attempt. So sit back and remember, be not afraid. Production for Wishmaster 2 started sooner than you'd expect. While the studio was preparing to release the first film, they noticed growing anticipation and quickly moved forward with a sequel. Director Jack Shoulder was no stranger to New Line and Wes Craven since, they were both behind Wishmaster and Nightmare on Elm Street, whose sequel he directed in 1985. He reveals that he was originally approached to direct the first Wishmaster, but he felt that it wasn't good enough, so he passed on it. I guess they really wanted him because he got approached yet again with a juicy offer to let him write and direct the sequel Reign Free, as long as it says Wishmaster 2 in the title.
They said basically, you can write the script and you can do whatever you want. We don't care. We just want a movie called Wishmaster 2 with
sounds like Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, it was the same thing. So
with these conditions, wait a minute, what the?
Yeah. They just wanted to put out a film, and it was said Nightmare on Elm Street with a 2 after it. That was basically what they wanted, and they wanted to just make a scary film that would make some money.
Interesting. With these conditions, he accepted the offer. Wishmaster 2 Evil Never Dies sees the return of Nathaniel Demarest taking the fall for a heist in order to get sent to prison. Why? Well, as he condescendingly implies,
access. Everybody wants something.
A lot of wishing going on in there.
It's just collecting his souls.
Which makes total sense. As a result, a good portion of the movie takes place here until he decides he's had enough and just leaves to wreak havoc elsewhere. Andrew Duvall reprises the titular role with an even bigger shit-eating grin. And you know what? That alone carries the movie. He's so good in this role. He's given even more cheese to chew the scenery with, and you're just waiting for someone to slip up and make a wish. And that leads me to the biggest issue I had with the movie, the wishes. They are pretty underwhelming. The deaths in this movie got a serious downgrade which are proportional to its budget, which, look at that, it's about $2.5 million, or half of the first one. It's a bummer too because the first one set the bar with expectations that this one fails to meet. They're unfortunately forgettable, with the only exception being that of the lawyer. But does he even die? I don't know. I just assumed he did because he got all contorted. There's a few wishes in the movies that are pretty lame that I would expect in the real world, but in the movie, nuh-uh. I want his head. I want to escape. The casino wishes everybody good luck. Come on, man, where's the spectacle? The most egregious sin this movie commits was to only have one major set piece of mayhem that basically offers zero uniqueness to it. The first one had all these elaborate costumes and practical effects that were memorable. Like to me, this wooden lady is memorable. The snake guy, skeleton, and statues were the ones that stuck with me for a really long time. This is not memorable. This too isn't memorable either. I don't know, man. I don't know what else to add. This movie really needed K&B effects back, and they should have continued the trend of casting a carousel of horror alums in various small roles. That would have been fun. But hey, we got Tiny Lister, Bokeem Woodbine, and Robert Lasardo here.
Fucking Reaper, baby.
It should be of no surprise to find out that there was zero to no information about the making of for this movie. And I get it. When director Jack Shoulder gets interviewed, everyone wants to talk about Nightmare 2. And when Andrew Duvall gets interviewed, they just want to talk about the first Wishmaster, or Lost. Literally no one's talking about this movie. They didn't then and they don't do now. Why? Because they didn't go to theaters. Why didn't it go to theaters, Jack? The movie premiered on television on March 12, 1999 and went directly to DVD afterwards. It has a runtime of 97 minutes, which surprisingly goes quicker than you'd think. And if you haven't figured it out by now, it falls in the horror and fantasy genres. It also shouldn't be a surprise to learn that this movie is rated R for horror, violence, and gore, strong language, and some sexuality, which is pretty vanilla. I think the most they show is first base, It's pretty bland. And I suppose you can say that about the entirety of the film. And look at that. You already did. Going through the reviews is just as entertaining as a movie. Y'all are pretty passionate about it. It's also a no-brainer to conclude that the audience was able to accept the campiness more than the critics. But what's even funnier is how almost everyone mentions the Laurie scene. And now that I think about it, I take back what I said about the bland sexuality. I was just thinking about these two knuckleheads when I wrote that bit, and the Laurie hadn't even crossed my mind. Back to the reviews. To put a number on them, the audience gave it a 30%, while the critics gave it a 9% on Rotten Tomatoes. 9? IMDb currently has it at a 5.1 out of 10, and Letterboxd at 2.5 out of 5, and Metacritic has no data on it. Personally, I'd file this under guilty pleasure for sure. It's the kind of movie that you have playing in the background at a Halloween party. It just adds to the mood without requiring you to follow the plot closely, you know? As for the stars in this movie, Andrew Devolve returns as the djinn who grants wishes to a gruesome effect. Prior to this movie, he did Wishmaster in 97, followed by Crossfire in 98. Afterwards, he did Stealth Fighter in 99 and Faust in 2000. He also did a few TV movies in between, but I ain't mentioning those. Holly Fields was born on October 11th, 1976 in Sacramento, California. Fields plays the role of Morgana, the unfortunate victim who awakens the djinn and is now magically bound to fulfill her 3 wishes. Prior to her Wishmaster role, she was in Mr. Payback, an interactive movie in 95, followed by First Encounter in 97. After Wishmaster, she was in Interceptor Force in 99, followed by King's Highway in 2002. She's also done a lot of TV stuff in between, none of which I'll mention here. Paul Johansson was born on January 26, 1964 in Spokane, Washington. A Catholic priest that assists Morgana in her quest to defeat the evil that follows her. Similar to the other two, he's done a lot of TV work, but with the movies, he was in She's So Lovely in 97, Carnival of Souls in 99, John Q in 2002, as well as Edge of Madness in the same year. Director Jack Shoulder was born on June 8, 1945 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Wishmaster 2 seems to be one of his last 4 films he directed before retiring. Prior to Wishmaster, he directed Generation X in 96, followed by Runaway Car in 97. The final run he had as director was Supernova in 2000, although it's uncredited, Arachnid in 2001, Beeper in 2002, and finally finishing off with 12 Days of Terror in 2004. Similarly to the other cast in here, he did a lot of TV work in between. And that about covers the making of Wishmaster 2 Evil Never Dies. If you found this video entertaining, consider subscribing. Better yet, browse around my channel for similar content. And remember, be not afraid.